Well, the United States just shocked the world with this move, handing over its sovereignty to unelected groups of globalists around the world. And China is watching exactly what we're doing. Let me ask you a question. As an American, did you vote to allow a globalist cabal of unelected billionaires take over your country, take over your money supply, take over your food supply? Because they're doing it. That's exactly what's happening. This week, we got our clearest indication of that. And don't look now, but the country you know and love is being broken apart piece by piece. America's sovereignty is on the table. And this week, the United States just shocked the world with a few big moves, of course, that China is watching very closely. How will the United States cede its power to this group of globalist cabals? I'll give you these three big moves in a moment that show America dollar dominance and America's sovereignty is on a massive decline. But first, some broader context here as it relates to a unipolar versus multipolar world order. You know, one large body controlling everything or multiple sovereign nations deciding how best to run their own countries. The sanctions against Russia. Here's an example. They've done virtually nothing to Russia. Nothing. But instead, they're helping to crush Europe and African countries, help drive inflation through the roof in the United States, drive up energy costs around the world. The clearest sign of this came this week. Russia said, we're done playing games with NATO's bullshit, attacking our bridge to Crimea, one of the largest bridges in Europe, attacking our civilians in the south, launching cluster bomb attacks that just killed a journalist. Yes, hitting multiple journalists, targeting them specifically. Russia had been allowing the grain deal to continue to allow NATO and Ukraine to export all of the grain that it wants through the port of Odessa. You know the story. It would go out to Europe and Africa. The condition, of course, was easy. Hey, remove these sanctions, which inhibit the flow of grain, allow us to fix our agriculture machines. Oh, and don't launch attacks against Crimea. Don't kill civilians. But you know NATO, they couldn't let well enough alone. They attacked the giant bridge, killing 2 civilians. Russia said, okay, you had your chance. You didn't hold up your end of the bargain on this grain deal, so we're done. We're not letting it happen anymore. We're done allowing you to send grain to these European countries that are supplying tanks and weapons and attacking our people. We need to protect our country, our sovereignty. Because of NATO's games, people are going to starve. Famine will hit these countries in Africa without these grain exports. Just look at what's already happening in Europe with its energy crisis due to Russian sanctions. The EU is facing gas shortages all over Europe. And the big concern is that this winter is going to be devastating for Europe with a further decline of Russian gas deliveries. So it's a choice right now between protecting your sovereignty or handing over the keys to an unelected body of globalists who are going to run the show. African countries are saying, hey, wait a second. The United States has been a bully to us for decades, stealing our resources, forcing us to use the US dollar to settle transactions. They're punks, they're bullies. We're going to protect ourselves and look for better friends.
Africa is a hub for natural resources. It has always been for the West. And now Africa has multiple options. Africa doesn't have to succumb to a bad deal that we get from the Western countries. Africa has choice now. Africa now wants to be treated as equals at the table. And now Russia and China offer that to Africa.
She's right. There are plenty of better friends out there who aren't going to strip you of your sovereignty and steal all of your resources. And this week we had 3 really troubling pieces of news that show America is losing its own sovereignty, and it's doing it on purpose. Number 1, this week the United States Constitution was pushed aside in favor of another document, the North Atlantic Treaty, the document that rules NATO. That's right, in a stunning move that got zero mainstream media attention, the United States Senate voted down an amendment to the 2024 National Defense Authorization Act. What was that amendment? What was so controversial? Well, here's how Senator Rand Paul describes it. Today, I offer an amendment to the NDAA Act that would have clarified that Article 5 of the NATO treaty does not supersede the Constitution. He got into a heated floor debate with Senator Bob Mendez, who said this is unnecessary. This is unnecessary. NATO is not stronger than the U.S. Constitution by voting it down. Listen.
This sends a damaging message about the U.S. commitment to the alliance at a time when support for NATO is as critical as ever.
I think it should be an easy vote to affirm the Constitution. To vote against affirming the Constitution actually places doubt in the Constitution. We do need to reaffirm the power and the necessity of declaring war because we are ignoring it by continuing to be involved in military activity and war around the globe without ever having voted on it as we are mandated by the Constitution.
Seems like an easy one, right? Support the U.S. Constitution, affirm it as a senator, but no, it failed. It failed. Only 16 senators voted in favor of the U.S. Constitution. A day after Senator Rand Paul put forward this amendment, his Kentucky office was set on fire and destroyed. Coincidence? You be the judge. Number 2, the WHO Pandemic Treaty, the World Health Organization Treaty, is moving forward, and the U.S. is about to ratify its power. It will give ultimate power to an unelected group of globalists at the World Health Organization during times of emergency. You want to lock down the United States? Don't ask the Biden administration, ask the WHO. They've got all the power under this treaty. The bottom line is the Biden administration is giving away ultimate power to the WHO. This is perhaps the most important story of the decade. And the mainstream media is ignoring this story. You know who's not ignoring it? The Romanian member of parliament, Cristian Terhes. Now, he just delivered a brilliant speech destroying this WHO treaty, saying it's the greatest threat to national sovereignty in the world right now. Watch this amazing speech.
People all across the world are hungry, are thirsty for freedom. They want their own officials to be accountable and to respond in front of the public. So the alternative that was presented to us with this pandemic, this was the best opportunity for some elites that are not elected by anybody, who are not accountable to anybody, to pretty much hijack day by day, month by month, year by year, more and more of our rights, more and more of our assets. And now just imagine in your worst case scenario what will happen if we allow the WHO to have so much power over our states, over our governments, our elected officials, and even over our judiciary. So the biggest threat that we are facing right now is a threat to our national sovereignty, to the supremacy of our constitutions, and implicitly, unfortunately, to our fundamental rights.
And that's just a piece of the speech. I encourage you to watch the full thing. We don't have time for it here. But listen to this guy. They won't listen to him. They're moving forward without it. They're moving forward and giving away our sovereignty to the WHO. And third, America just did exactly what this guy said would be unimaginable. Imagine if they had a digital currency and they would tell you how to spend your money. And of course, he talked about the Canadian truckers, right? And how the Trudeau administration just swooped in and said, you know what? You're not allowed to have your bank accounts anymore because of your position against COVID and COVID vaccines. Really? Yeah. You bought too much meat this week, so we're cutting your bank account. We're blocking your bank and your money flow. The U.S. just officially rolled out the Fed Now digital program. No one covered this story, of course. The U.S. dollar as we know it has been changed forever. And many argue that the Federal Reserve, which is an unelected central bank, will use this as a bridge to a digital dollar, replacing your traditional bank. They will control our fake money supply, and they'll tell you what to buy, how to buy it, and tell you when to stop buying certain things. Guys, this is all happening right before our eyes, and the mainstream media is ignoring the story. And that's the news update part of today's video. Now I want to tell you about today's sponsor, Atlas Salt. Yes, a salt mining company that is a game changer of a stock. Wait until I show you the details of this company, guys. Get out your paper and pencils right now. On July 26th, this upcoming Wednesday, the Federal Reserve will raise the Fed funds rate to 5.25%. Now, I know this because of the market probability says it's nearly 100% that this is going to happen. Take a look at this. The CPI prints have been coming down steadily, and I have listened to these real estate fund managers that manage billions of dollars in real estate, and they're pretty confident that rates are not going higher. So this means, what does this mean? Well, this means that lenders would start to resume originating mortgages, and we can end this freeze out of providing mortgages. Gold has also jumped up big along with this, and so is silver as well. So guys, real tangible assets like gold, silver, real estate are at the center of this strategy to protect yourself from these rampant globalists, having these as a part of your portfolio. Even with my excitement about the prospects of new all-time highs for gold and silver, my forecast of silver hitting $30 an ounce before the end of the year, I have learned a lot. There's one commodity that I knew nothing about before last year. And America solely relies on this commodity for a very particular use. And it would be difficult to function without it. Literally would bring America's highways to a complete standstill. It also happens to be a superior inflation hedge as an asset investing in. I've done a ton of research on this, and it's become evident that North America has a very serious domestic supply shortfall of salt. And there's only one mine project that's moving towards production right now. Just one. As opposed to gold and silver mines, there are plenty, and a lot of those are moving towards production. But America uses an astronomical amount of road salt during the snowstorms, right? And we don't have enough of it. We don't have it at all, frankly. So it's about supply and demand. These are the companies I like to invest in where the demand is high. And if you've been watching my show for any length of time, you know that I've been studying these minerals in the United States that we don't have, from uranium to lithium to salt. We need these desperately because we're relying so heavily right now on Russia, China, and other countries. And of course, if the supply gets cut off, we are screwed. So this company, Atlas Salt, here's their stock ticker on your screen. Let me put this up here. They have been actively searching for a new CEO who will have one key job: to take this deal, this salt mine project, over the goal line. And that also includes a potential buyout for a huge potential exit for shareholders. Yes, selling the company. So I'm waiting for the stock to surge. Yes, I am waiting for the stock to surge. And the stock is so cheap right now, trading at just 88 cents a share. It's down almost 62% this year. So again, this stock is deeply discounted right now, and that's my opinion, but I think it's really discounted. So this company owns the only one-of-its-kind salt project in North America, and it's the only pure-play salt company in North America on the public markets that you can buy shares of. That's it, the only one. So Atlas Salt owns a one-of-a-kind salt project because the type of salt that it's contained inside of it, if and when the deposit advances to production, it's used for road de-icing. Now, I personally haven't done the math on this, but last year, when the market began speculating that Atlas Salt might begin the process of putting their project on display for potential buyers who would want to swoop in and buy out the company, the stock rallied almost 200% in 2 months. Do you realize why I'm putting this alert out to you right now? Because the timing of this is essential. I like to invest before a stock value explodes. Now, here's just some of the research I've done on this company to give you some of the numbers. The most important part of this business is the hard asset itself, the salt, okay? This type of asset, the government can't just print it out of thin air. Can't, like the Fed, with money. Road salt is the biggest single individual market for salt in Eastern North America, with an estimated 25 to 30 million tons of salt scattered across roads in Eastern Canada and the United States annually. And North America doesn't produce enough of it. So as an investor, I love supply deficits that I can help to fill by owning the right stock. Atlas Salt has full ownership over a deposit called the Great Atlantic, which is the premier undeveloped salt project in North America. They own it. That would make it the first new underground salt mine in North America in more than 20 years, if and when it's brought into production. Now, if you do your own homework on this, on Atlas Salt, you're going to realize that it's the only pure salt play in North American stock exchange right now, and that there's no deposit other than Atlas's Great Atlantic project that could be soon bringing much needed new domestic road salt to North America. That's it. This is the only one. So if you're to go back to what we were just talking about, unipolar versus multipolar world, you realize why today's multipolar world makes domestically sourced minerals a premium jurisdiction, which is why I'm bullish on Atlas Salt. North America needs this. It needs it out of the hands of Russia, of China. It needs to be self-sufficient. So this is my first and only ever salt play in my portfolio. Again, here is their ticker on your screen. I'll have links to their website in the description below so you can read about their latest project report, read about the Great Atlantic Salt Project, and do your own due diligence on this company. If you want to buy this stock, you have to use one of the larger brokerages like E-Trade or TD Ameritrade. I personally use E-Trade for all of my smaller commodity stocks. And I want you to go and do that research right now. We'll have links in the description below, and we'll see you next time, everyone.